Welcome back to Harem in the Labyrinth, Anime of the New World, Anime Review, Episode 11. This will be the 11th episode of the series, Order. Now, in the case of where they adapted from for this episode, I was rereading the books themselves, and, well, I miscalculated exactly how far that the last episode went to. It actually finished up book 3. It completely finished it up. No problem. Basically, like the previous episode pretty much covered the entirety of chapter 5 of book 3. And now we're on book 4, which is the most recent book I've read. And from what I can tell, it did also partially adapt this chapter last week. This week, it pretty much finished up the rest of chapter 1 and went through the first few parts of chapter 2. Mostly put, this is what happens in the episode. We start off with Michio and Roxanne, where they're basically at home. He, of course, thinks of various things, and he discusses that their party should expand, which, of course, Roxanne agrees to. He's also thinking of going to Vale to basically make a will with Al on the condition that if anything happens to him, like if he dies, Roxanne gets freed. Roxanne doesn't want that, just basically want to be with him because he's like very kind to her. So he says, okay, that's fine. No, I have other business with them. Basically, they're discussing of buying a slave, another one. Or possibly they may get a dwarf. And then they go straight to Vale. And of course, they mentioned about the whole merger crystals thing. Now, in the book, they actually went into detail of like the shop they went to sell it. Now, my guess is, like in the case of some stuff in this episode in the series, this is probably cut due to time because this probably was not very necessary to show. You can imply he probably visited the store and basically sold that crystal, which is probably worth 100,000 Nels. Norse, I think that's even the currency in the series. So he presumably probably did it because I'm sure something like that probably would not be interesting for people who watch the show. So it from the perspective of the anime, it seems like he basically when he got the video went straight to Alan's shop. Alan himself had not been seen for a few episodes, so of course they figured though they want to expand the party because they're getting more monsters basically to battle. So basic now in the book he also shows off various male slaves. Now this was cut from the anime probably due. Now in the case of the first part that's perfectly understandable just due to time. This probably because it's not women because it's passionate. The studio they probably cut that particular section because it was full of sexy ladies, so let's cut it. From a guy's perspective, it's perfectly fine. I've got no issue with this at all. So then they basically go straight to discussing about a dwarf who possibly is a blacksmith. And according to Alan, they're very rare to come across, but he does have a dwarf. And of course, we introduced to Sherry. Sherry actually comes like a little over halfway through chapter 1 of book 4. That's how far in she comes. Comes in. And in case you're curious though, now the outfit she wears in the end was like a mixture like purple and white-ish outfit, where she's 16 about the ears, which like how thin they are, which that was something brought in the book too. And if you're going to ask, is this the outfit she wore in the book? They did not actually describe the outfit that she wore in the book. Not really, no. So they chat with her for a while, possibly about. And they also show off the woman in the episode who was, let's just say, the one who was kind to Roxanne when she was there. So, and of course, Michio. He talks to Sherry. Sherry, that is her name. Sherry. She's a dwarf who's got pointy ears, which is interesting because dwarves. Now, this actually is the first time I've ever seen this, where dwarves, usually picking in fiction, usually have normal ears. Normal ears that basically he would have. This is the first one I've seen where they have pointed ears, which is interesting to say the least. So, let's at some point, she also mentioned that she's in love with an explorer, which the anime adds in that, of course, Michio already knew that because of the info thing. So, after chatting with her, basically a lot of the conversations pulled right from the book. And then right afterwards, Roxanne goes to talk to the woman, and then of course they discuss briefly with Alan. After Alan leaves to put her in another room for a bit, Roxanne and Michio talk for a bit, and of course they agree to get her. Now, of course, they talk. He talks to Alan in private. Now, one thing they do specifically mention in the anime is, well, having Roxanne sit next to Michio, because if she's standing behind the couch, that means that from his perspective, he thinks, like Alan would think, that he's here to sell her back. Just to verify, we're not selling her back. Just basically to prove a point. So they discuss, and of course they agree, and of course Dan comes basically discussing the price. Now, of course, he is going to agree to buy her, but only for a certain price. They discuss about 300,000 and 270, and of course discuss the story a maid outfit too. Actually, like what Roxanne wore. So they agree to lower it down to 177,800 nobles, which of course he agrees to, and purchase. And of course, show up intelligence cards up like they would Roxanne back in episode 3. So good stuff there. And by the way, did you know it's actually been 8 episodes since Michio bought Roxanne? Yeah, it's been 8 episodes, which that is something. The fact they actually give that amount of time. In the books, basically, this took up like 2 full books because in the books, basically, he successfully purchased her at the end of book 1, and books 2 and 3 is them with basically their time with the Labyrinth, and then leveling up and basically going to various levels. Here at book 4, we're basically, now in the case of book 2, basically what we see here in the anime, now I appreciate the anime keeping a lot of the important stuff in and cutting the unnecessary stuff, which so far has done really well here. Oh, and of course, right after they leave the shop, and of course, Roxanne introduces herself as Michio's #1 slave, and he's like, when she assign herself that position, and of course, then they leave, and of course, go back, and of course, he did mention to Al before the purchasement that they'll be catching up about a house now. They're actually renting it, so they take him back to his place via. Now, in the anime, the subbing, of course, Hunter does this, they refer to it as transport. In the book, it's referred to as warp. Basically, a warp gate. And they go straight into his house. Now, they do cut the line here of Sherry asking that she wants to sit on the floor. He's like, no, just sit in the chair. Perfectly fine. They discuss basically about various weapons she can use. Basically, she mentioned she used a spear, but she also uses a maul. Basically, hammer. And how does she feel about using a hammer? Like, okay, and of course they discuss spit, and of course they do discuss about the ears thing. That's a particular point in the anime, both anime and book. And that's pretty much it. It basically just kind of set for next week's episode. But yeah, I'm like, yeah, you're probably thinking, wow, that was quick. It took Michio 2 full episodes to buy. It took him basically at the end of episode 2 to decide to buy Roxanne and buy her 2 episodes later. Here it's like, oh, one and done the same episode. At least he actually had some stuff at least he had something to sell to buy her this time. Now you're probably thinking that they did it too quickly. Oh no, they actually developed a relationship between Michio and Roxanne really well, and that jumpstart straight to getting Sherry. Like, if it was another studio doing this, they probably would do this within like a couple episodes after Roxanne shows up. That, oh, we got another girl showing up. This one, at least they waited 8 episodes to do this. Good enough part of passion to do this. Now, of course, they are, in fact, going ahead with starting adapting book 4 already. Now, I am presuming that the season will be 30 episodes. Do I think they'll finish that to book 4? I don't know. We'll find out as time goes on for this one. Okay, so that's the particular view. Next up, more Kamen Rider. Okay, next video. Bye.